Hello and welcome to the Mystic Cast, where you join me, Jack Stafford, a student of metaphysics and member of the AETHERIUS Society, the cosmic religion for the Aquarian Age, as we break down the barriers between religion, science, metaphysics, philosophy, and mysticism, all of which are really only aspects of the self-same quest for truth. Please note this is an independent program, not produced or fact-checked by the AETHERIUS Society. Today, our guest is Dr. Susanne Hopeful Wellenhofer. I'll say that again.
Okay, well, it's not doctor. I have 2 masters, but no doctor. It's Susanne Hopeful Wellenhofer.
Susanne Hopeful Wellenhofer. I'll edit that in so it sounds perfect.
Good. Perfect.
Great. So thank you so much for agreeing to chat to me, because you're a very respected Theosophist and a true scholar.
Thank you for saying that. I would say I do feel that I'm a true Theosophist and not just a member of the Theosophical Society. And I do a lot of research because I also contribute to the Theosophical Wiki. So, researching Rudolf Steiner, Franz Hartmann, Bruno Giordani, Pico della Mirandola has helped me get even a better understanding of the Theosophy today, or what we are all about. And I also was asked, this all happened, these things are very often not planned, to translate books by Dr. Franz Hartmann, who is a pioneer of the Theosophical movement, a contemporary of Helena Blavatsky, one of the co-founders of the Theosophical movement. And I love his writings because he's very clear, maybe a little bit repetitive, but clear and easy to understand, and very direct, right? That's part of the German.
Yeah, no, it's very good.
Yeah, I'm originally from Austria, and I'm also half Croatian, so I have Slavic blood, and I have some Hungarian blood. But I love that, to have structured writings and to make them easily understandable.
Okay, so what drew my attention to you and your work was your translation of Dr. Franz Hartmann's book. Was he a doctor as well? Or is he...
Yes, he was a medical doctor.
He was a medical
doctor. The interesting thing, he was a pharmacist and he was a medical doctor. And when he, later in his life, he specialized on eye diseases. But that's how he even ended up in the United States. He finished his studies, I believe in 1865. And so he was asked to be a doctor on a ship that was going, I believe, from France to the US. And it was that trip was supposed to take 44 days. And then he stayed in the US for 18 years.
Wow.
It was not planned. So
this book, Adepts and Rosicrucians, that you translated, I'd like to talk to you about the Adepts part of it, more interesting than the Rosicrucians. Because also the Theosophical Society was envisaged by the spiritual hierarchy of Earth, the Great White Brotherhood, the Adepts. What can you tell us from that book and from your own studies about these Mahatmas?
Well, there were 2 Mahatmas, Mahatma Kutumi and Mahatma Moria. And I personally must say that the Mahatma letters that were published, because these were letters written to a gentleman named Synod, who was British and who wanted to correspond with them, I find personally extremely helpful. Because they tried their best to answer Synod's questions. Now, we do not have that part. We don't have letters where we can see the questions. We only have the responses. And why they thought it was important to try to found the society, why it was important to bring Eastern and Western traditions together. And this is something that Franz Hartmann then really did later in his life when he wrote a book when he came back to Germany and brought this Eastern philosophy to Germany too. They tried to find somebody who would help them to transmit that information that they had, and that was Helena Blavatsky. These letters, in my opinion, very helpful. They are, you can find them in the British Library in London. And I was there a few years ago and read them. And I'm personally very touched. So they are, he calls them adepts. Sometimes we call them masters, but they're very advanced souls who decided to try to help humanity.
So they've gone through the initiation of ascension, and they are no longer bound by the cycle of reincarnation in our system, but they stay behind to serve.
That's correct. One thing, though, that I noticed, because there were certain things in the letters that, caught me off guard a little bit, that you always have to, even at that level, because they still have to go up higher. They had a master that was in the hierarchy that was higher than them. They had this inner and outer personality. So, or individuality and outer personality. So you can see that sometimes in the letters that they're very open about what they're saying, and not totally perfect yet. Let's put it that way. How we understand how an evolved soul is, but they are very involved in the sense that they're very tolerant, and they can see where people's weaknesses are, and where their strengths are, and what should be done, and if we are qualified. One of the letters, so Franz Hartmann was one of the few who did receive letters from them, probably approximately 10. And one thing that struck me as interesting is that I think it was Master Moria said to him, don't ask to be a chela, because it's very challenging to be a chela. So
what's the chela?
What is a disciple? So that means a disciple that's going to be tested, right? Tested in real life. If and whenever you are ready, you will be approached. Rather wait for that, because as you mentioned, these adepts have to go through initiation. And so we all go through a lot of small initiations. But when we come to the bigger initiations, we are tested, and that cannot be easy. That will not be easy. And that's what they point out. So I thought that was very helpful. And in the letters, or when you study the history of that time, you will find out that there were quite a few people who desperately wanted to be chelas, and people who then became chelas and who didn't make it. And that is probably not a good way to go about it. Just my personal opinion. Just my personal opinion.
Yeah, and have there been other communicators after this period? Because the spiritual hierarchy of Earth, of course, they're very active, but they've gone quiet after.
Yes, they gone quiet, and we don't know. Not many people had any contact. We don't even know. I believe there is a website that tells you all the people who had contact with them. But they have gone quiet. And but there was somebody named Dual Cool who worked then after, who used to be a chela of Master Moria or Master Kuthumi. So and then he must have advanced, and he worked with Alice Bailey. I don't know if you're familiar with her work, but he wrote a lot about astrology. So basically, and say it's Alice Bailey's work or it's Dual Cool's work. So these were the only ones. After that, no. We had in our society some members who were clairvoyant.
Mm-hmm.
They are very I found their writings very helpful, or their lectures. Dora Kunz was one of them. She could read people's auras and developed with a doctor, therapeutic touch. And there's a man named Geoffrey Hudson, for example. I feel like his meditations, I find them extremely helpful. But yes, you're right. It's quiet. It's quiet.
That's just to know, because, well, we believe that in the AETHERIUS Society, the Dr. King, he was the Theosophical Society was envisaged by the spiritual hierarchy of Earth, and the AETHERIUS Society was envisaged by the cosmic masters. So Dr. King channeled this book, The Nine Freedoms, and it tells us the first three freedoms are bravery, love, and service, and that's putting you on the path. And then the next three freedoms are enlightenment, and then cosmic consciousness, then ascension. So that's the raising of Kundalini. When you can do it repeatedly, after many lives, or a many advanced stage, then you can go through the initiation of ascension. Then you can enter the spiritual hierarchy of Earth, or you go into interplanetary existence. So you go and live in other classrooms in this solar system. At a different frequency, at a higher frequency. So Dr. King, he was incarnated into this life cycle of Earth as the Master Jesus did. So Dr. King's the master for the Aquarian age. And so he communicated with many masters, also the Saint Guling, who is the leader of the spiritual hierarchy of Earth. So that was the higher master that maybe the other adepts were talking about.
Thank you. Very interesting. I love that, love and service, because that is very, very important in Theosophy too. And there are three parts that, if you want to be more than just a member, but really try to become a Theosophist, you should meditate, you should study, the texts, and not only because our second object is to compare, like philosophy, religion, science, and art. But the third one is service. Service to humanity is extremely important. Yes.
Yeah, that was a beautiful thing. I mean, Theosophy was to unite the world's religions and bring people together. And so the AETHERIUS Society is more of a cosmic element. So there is it's kind of the teachings for the times, for the Aquarian age. So we get a lot from of teachings that weren't available before because we weren't ready.
We weren't ready. But the Aquarian age, I'm also into astrology, is a lot for me about, raising the consciousness of humanity. Absolutely. But it's also about group work. And group work, I find that so interesting that Zoom has just exploded because of the pandemic. And so for organizations like our organizations, there were some advantages, because we started to meet much more often via Zoom. And so that brought like-minded souls together, So, yes.
Yeah, I know. And you're doing wonderful work as well, because the ancient wisdom is valid for all time now, but it needs to be updated and translated for our modern era. I mean, the secret doctrines and the work of Madame Blavatsky is very difficult to penetrate now. It's very it's very hard to get through, no?
Absolutely. I completely agree with you. We have been studying together, a group also from all over the US, and we meet Saturdays. I moderate most of the meetings, but it has taken years. We will be soon finished with volume 2. But, if somebody were to start to get interested in Theosophy, I would probably recommend The Key to Theosophy if you want to stay with Helena Blavatsky. I remember one of the first books that I read was by Annie Besant, the second president, called Ancient Wisdom. I found that very good. But what we do also, and I'm very involved in that's dear to my heart, since I do have an educational background. I taught for almost 20 years at the George Washington University. we create online courses so that those who are interested in Theosophy can take courses and learn more about it. They are free. Of course, we ask for donations, but I find that very helpful. And then they are like, I'm going to teach a course next month for the Theosophical Society. The price is not very high, and it's based on Hartmann's teachings. And it is, how do you bring these teachings into the to the modern age, as you said. And I think for that, group work is very important. Discussing it, but also applying it. I think this is what, I don't know how important that is in your society, but I think this is where we have to emphasize in the Theosophical Society. How can we apply what we learn? What can we do in our everyday life to make a little difference? Because the most important thing is to work on ourselves, right? Only that way can we change the world. But what else? How can we be of service to make it helpful? How does yeah?
Prayer is a big thing. I mean, so we pray into, we have we pray into a battery. So it's got crystals inside and it's specially constructed. So you have a mantra team all around you, and then the prayer goes in, and you send energy to the prayer, and he does the 12 blessings. So you pray to greater and greater beings. So you pray to those who work for peace, those who love, the healers, then the Mother Earth, the living being, the sun, the God in the Bible, the Brahma of the Hindu scripts. Then you pray to the galaxy, a living, breathing being, which can't even go back to God because it hasn't transmuted matter. And every time you send energy to one of these beings, by the same path, energy comes back to you. And so it's kind of a big tantric exercise. And we put the energy into batteries, and then we release it into times of crisis through a spiritual energy radiator. So it's like the language of direct action. They also put it into psychic centers of the Mother Earth, like in Loch Ness and Lake Powell in America. So they have a boat, and the spiritual energy goes right down into, so it's a token gift back to the Mother Earth. So prayer is a big way. And we also do, so because in these days, there's lots of people giving, you can help the homeless, you can help, people often unfortunate, but Dr. King said we're in the crisis, the energy crisis in these days is a spiritual energy crisis. If you fix the spiritual problems, and spiritual energy is a physical thing, it can be measured. If you increase this, then you can correct all problems.
I find that so fascinating. I did also research, and I can mention one woman, Clara Cott, who was a very wonderful theosophist, but she was active during World War I, and a lot of women back then were asked to be nurses to help those wounded. And the master, one of the masters, told her, "Look, many women can be nurses. We want you to teach Theosophy for this spiritual, to take care of the spiritual crisis, as you say, and the spiritual evolution." So the same thought, but from the masters here too. Very interesting. And then I'm very close to a shaman here in Washington, D.C. And I don't think I need to say anything, but the political situation is a little bit stressful here. And I know that the shamans do these kinds of prayers or ceremonies also to try to do your best to keep the peace, and improve situations.
Yeah, and there's been times when they've released energy during peace negotiations, or when it thought it was impossible for any results to come, and wars have been stopped, and after earthquakes they release energy. I mean, you should really have them running 24/7 these days. It's a real crazy situation. So but yeah, we do what we can, and we also do spiritual healing and things like that. But it's like you say, you can give someone a seed, you can give someone some food, a sandwich, and they can feed themselves for today. You give themselves seeds, they can feed themselves for a longer time. You heal someone now, maybe you help them go through a karmic situation they're going through, but your wisdom, you carry on life through life. You know, the subconscious remembers it. So
Well, I find, you know, you mentioned spiritual healing, and there is a story with Dr. Franz Hartmann, because many people don't believe in magical healing or spiritual healing or, you know, therapeutic touch or Reiki. But he had a skin disease, and he really suffered a lot, and probably a lot when he was in India dealing with the heat. And sometimes he had to use chloroform to be even able to sleep at all. So there was a man, I unfortunately can't remember his name right now, but he did magical healing at a distance. So Franz Hartmann wrote him a letter and asked him to help him, and didn't hear anything back. And after a few weeks, suddenly one night, he felt this energy, this really healing energy. And he was healed. And then a week later, he received a letter, and the doctor said, well, I did this during the time, and I hoped it helped. So he had to believe in it, of course. I believe that you have to believe in it. But I find this story fascinating, because this person was very well known maybe only among occultists, but he was successful too.
was he
So
where was he from? Was he the British?
no, he was in the United States.
Oh.
Actually, I have the name on the Theosophical wiki. I put that in because these are the stories that fascinate me, you know. But there is, you know, this is based on natural law. It's just we are not advanced enough to understand what these laws are and how to apply them so that we can help ourselves.
Well, healing hands, you know, they go through all traditions. I mean, it's Reiki,
Yes.
and prayer is, you know, Reiki, but on a bigger scale. You know, you send energy out to the divas, to the diva kingdom, to help with a, you know, because if we had all right thought and action in our world, we'd have perfect weather. You know, the divas can use the energy. I mean, that's very big in Theosophical Society. You know, they talk a lot about the diva kingdom, and George Hodgson, wasn't it, who wrote his book about with those wonderful pictures of the divas. And so yeah, the diva kingdom is a big part of the Aetherius Society as well. We always send energy to the divas.
That's wonderful. Yeah. And do you have any other questions that you would like to address?
Yeah, I mean, we were to talk a bit about you do a lot of work with the female pioneers, and Light on the Path is a wonderful book, a lot more accessible.
Yeah, The Light on the Path was written by Mabel Collins. But the reason why, you know, I'm a woman, and I grew up in Austria, which when I grew up was a very patriarchal society, very traditional. Still, I mean, things have changed, of course, quite a bit. But so one of the things that I found so wonderful is that there was a woman who was a co-founder of this society. And so she gave other women, the society was founded in 1875 in November, right, in New York City. And so she gave other women the opportunity and the courage to become active. And that has always inspired me. And studying these different women, so I gave talks about it, and they are 2 talks about it, and they can be found on YouTube. But I also created an online course because I think it's important to understand that women already back then contributed a lot to this spiritual evolution, and to the were of service of humanity, because none of them were paid a lot. You know, they just gave everything they had. And as I said, one of them was Clara Cott. Another one was Constanze Wachtmeister. She was a contemporary of Helena Blavatsky, actually stayed with her when she wrote The Secret Doctrine. And so these women inspire me, and I've helped me on the path. And Clara Cott was one of the women who also talked a lot about, which was good during that time, because after World War I, so many mothers, wives suffered because they had lost their husbands or their brothers or their sons, about life after death,
Mm.
and that there is a life after death, and that it's blissful, and it's not as it's not that much suffering as here.
Depends where you go.
Not maybe and maybe at the beginning, as the Catholics call it, the purgatory. But when you are what we call the Kamaloka, if you have to get rid of the desire nature.
Mm.
But eventually, most humans end up in Devachan, which we call, and in the heaven that they created themselves.
Mm.
And then they can integrate all that they have learned in this life, and then prepare themselves for their next incarnation.
Yeah, I saw a good film of Astral City from a Brazilian. Have you seen that movie?
I have seen that movie, and I have seen it twice. It used to be, when I saw it the first time, it was for free on YouTube, and then they removed it, and you can see just parts. But yes, the Kamaloka of that, and he was a doctor, in fact, it was a very good description of what it would be like. And I can't imagine, but that was because he was such a materialist. Even though he was a doctor, he was such a materialist. And then it was just the woman whose husband she helped was the one who prayed for him. His own family didn't miss him too much. And but there is Eben Alexander is a neuroscience, I think a doctor who had this near-death experience, and he has given talks for the Theosophical Society, and his videos and lectures are extremely popular. But he said when he was in this state, he could he could sense those, or he was aware of the prayers that people sent out for him. I thought that was a very interesting fact. Yeah, Dr. Eben Alexander. He had a lot of people criticized him because, in the scientific and medical community, this metaphysics is not that popular.
No. Yeah, they say the space people, when they come to a planet, they flick through the realms. They can easily do that. They're the most heavily populated, because we believe in this society that each chakra is a realm of consciousness. So, if you're the lower astral realms, the hells are in the legs, below the lower chakras. So they're most heavily populated. So, and the higher realms, because it's the realm of just desserts. This is the big secret that we all forget are the life between lives. No, before we come back here, and everyone talks about reincarnation, but they forget the life between lives, which is, it's right here, but just a different frequency and vibration, and that we don't remember it is the elephant in the room. No,
that's right. Yeah, I have what is it? Newton, Michael Newton. I've read all his books about life between lives. But we also had once a speaker from the Noetic Society, which was founded by an astronaut who just had, I guess, an inspiring moment. He understood that there's more to the universe than what people believe, and so he created the Noetic Society. So these are all these overlaps. That's what I've always been looking for, even before I found the Theosophical Society. Very interesting. Any other questions you have?
Well, I was just to mention about the men and women. I mean, we're reincarnated man, woman, 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 man, 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 woman, woman. No one is forever a man, forever a woman. So that's also something to keep in mind, that and also the women are the teachers of the world. They're 50% of the population, but the masters say that they have a huge responsibility. They're not just at the behest of menfolk. So it's they're very powerful.
Yeah, and I think that's that is becoming more and more clear now. Yeah, that we are moving away from this belief that women have to be subservient to men, and that they are not as intelligent and not as strong or whatever. I think it's going to get better. It's not going to be perfect, but while I am still alive, and it all depends on the on the region, on the areas in the country. I mean, look at Afghanistan and other societies.
Yeah.
where they are still behind. But I trust into this. I trust that we are moving in the right direction. We might take 2 steps forward and 1 step back, but I'm focusing on the forward.
That's good. Yeah, people ask why were there no female masters, or why are all the Jesus, the Buddha, Dr. King, why were they all men? Because well, also some of the masters they have a very advanced feminine side as well. The Master Jesus was a perfect balance, no, and also because of the karma of mankind, because men have done most of the worst things, it helps if they incarnate as a man to balance karma. Does that resonate with your understanding?
Yeah, well, actually, Master Kundalini was in most of his lives supposedly a woman and not a man, and he is a second ray man. It has all to do with love and wisdom, and he's all about unconditional love. That's what he's all about. So yes, that I agree with you that it resonates with me. I don't understand completely the reasons, but that's why I'm so fond of Helena Blavatsky, and that she founded the society. Also, I think we had to go through this patriarch, through this era to balance something out. And even if we don't understand completely why, we are going to move into the right direction. I also think that's not a coincidence that we have so many young people or kids born with these gender issues, right? That they feel like they are male in the female body or the other way around. Because according to our teachings, we were sexless at the beginning, and only in the third, what we call the root race during the Lemurians, where we split up into, male and female. And so I think we are going to develop back into that. So
I think in our teachings they say, because the Mother Earth is a female entity in terms of polarity. So it's not that she is female, but she in our concept of but so eventually time will come on this earth when the females will be the rulers, because this is the frequency of the Mother Earth. But I think there's always has to be a female and a male. On the other planets, we're told there's still a female and a male, and they come together to create. So you need that. I think in our teachings, we came from Maldek, which is now the asteroid belt. We destroyed Maldek. So that's why we have such a karmic debt. We're in the bottom of the classrooms. So 18 million years ago, we came to Earth, and Adamic man was here first, and they gave way to us, and their lowest chakra was the heart chakra. So everything below the heart is it had to be made for us, with the reproductive organs and the digestive system. They could live on the prana from the earth and the sun. So and then the realms below the heart, there are also, the Mother Earth had to create those. So these are kind of abominations. So we're in a distorted phase for the Mother Earth. She's really had to involve herself to create this for us.
Interesting. Yeah, we I guess, there are definitely overlaps the way that you describe it, but we Helena Blavatsky talked about the Atlantean age, and Plato talked about that too. So did Edgar Cayce. He really, in his readings, called
Atlantis and Lemuria were the civilizations that we destroyed when we also probed the atom again.
Okay. Well, the way we look at it is there were 2 groups in the Atlantean age, and they were the very advanced soul that made it, and then there were the materialistic. They were very advanced in science, but they were very materialistic and then destructed. So so interesting. I didn't know that.
There was it's also in the bag of it in the ancient the Ramayana, Indra's dart and the Brahma weapon. There's also made mention of nuclear weapons in the ancient Indian Vedic scripts. So it's all there in, it's all these great
Not in the
traditions.
Bhagavad Gita, but it may be in the but maybe in other Vedic scriptures.
Yeah,
Interesting.
I think it's the Ramayana, and what's the other one? Maya. It's the oldest ones. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Ramayana. Yeah, I think I've got the name right.
Okay. Well, I'll have to ask. I have some Indian friends if they know more about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Indra's dart and the Brahma weapon. So there's these great clashes, and and they talk all about UFOs as well, and the people on clouds, and moving through space. So there's there's a lot of ufology in the Bible as well, and yeah.
The book that brought me on the path for everything. I was a seeker. I mean, you have to be a seeker, otherwise these don't fall into your hand. I read it when I was very young, and it was Initiation by Elizabeth Reich. And you never heard of that?
No.
But anyhow, so I love this book, and I have read it many times. But she describes she lived in Hungary, but she described how she suddenly remembered past lives. And to keep the story short, it is also summarized, by the way, on my website. But she was the daughter in thousands and thousands of years ago of a god, of a human being, and she wanted to be initiated. And the priest could not. You have to ask. When you ask 3 times, they cannot deny you. And so she failed, because that's what the priest tried to teach her. You never fell in love. This is what happened. And eventually, you goes through all this experience in order to climb up the hierarchy. Anyhow, so she remembers that she went through this initiation process, but then she saw these advanced worlds and these UFOs or whatever. And then suddenly she realized that it showed her that she would go back to be a rock for several thousand years. And this is what we learn in Theosophy. We start as mineral in the mineral kingdom, and then we evolve to the plant kingdom, and then the animal kingdom, the human kingdom, and then we become these more advanced souls, like Jesus or Krishna or Buddha. But I learned so much, and this is why when I read this book, I thought I want to find everything that confirms what is written in this book. But there was a point where we were very advanced, where we just misused it, and we hopefully won't make the same mistake. But even if we do, I truly believe that there will be very good advanced souls who will survive, and then we'll have to just start over again, right?
Yeah, you say that in a very light-hearted way, but I think the master said we're 6 million trillion years old.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. I don't know how. I mean, I forgot the exact age but that's very similar to Helena Blavatsky. Yeah. And me, it doesn't matter how many years exactly. I do study. I meditate, I keep journals, I try to be of service to humanity and everything. But in the end, it is all about being loving and kind. For me, education and trying to bring this inner awakening, this awareness of the inner awakening, and this awareness of that we are all one, to those who are interested. And you try to pray and address your prayers to the hierarchies to improve humanity. And I think it's important that we try to figure out where our work is, and then do our best within that work.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Maybe just to end on, I could read a little paragraph. You must this book. You get the 9 freedoms. You'd
okay,
get on such a. I'll just read a bit about the second freedom. So love is an all permeating energy which is above mind. It is the 3rd degree manifestation of the initial creative force. The initial creative force is but an energy which can bring it into being, original potential. The 2nd degree creative force is that energy which binds together this potential, bringing manifestation. The 3rd degree creative force is that energy known as love. So
love in the as compassion. the frequency of compassion.
Yeah,
Yes.
but this is an actual energy that
Yes, absolutely.
that it can actually kill love. When it's the only energy that getting into advanced metaphysics here, but that multiplies itself on itself by 4. So if it meets an obstacle and goes away, and comes back manifested by 4, goes away. If it meets an obstruction, it goes away, manifests again, 8, and so it can eventually will break down. So if people pray for Putin to be it becomes the line between black magic and white magic is very thin. You can kill with love.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's Franz Hartmann. One of his books that is very well known, even outside of Theosophy, is Magic, White and Black. And he says it has nothing to do with sorcery, but in a few words, the difference is that the intention. Do you want to help serve humanity or not? I do have a question for you, because this is one of the things you mentioned. You are, I'm very aware of the chakra. I'm a yoga instructor. I actually work on chakras regularly. But in our teachings, and especially we have one contemporary teacher who emphasizes that, because he's approached by people who mess things up, and then it's very difficult. We say, don't fool around with the Kundalini energy until you're completely purified. And purified meaning physically, mentally, and emotionally, until you are able to be selfless, until you are able to control your emotions and control your mind. So not everybody agrees. We have our principle is freedom of thought. There is no dogma in the Theosophical Society. But, and there are some people who said, well, we should really focus more on the third object, which is discovering the, unknown laws of nature. But how does your society look at it? Does it see any danger when people work on their Kundalini, or?
Oh, yes, Kundalini is very dangerous. I mean, if you do it, you can activate the Kundalini very quickly with advanced yoga and end up in a wheelchair pretty quickly. I mean, it's very dangerous. So we're told that karma yoga is the yoga of the age. Then the Kundalini, it says in here, the Kundalini will rise in an unforced fashion
when we are ready. Okay.
Yeah.
That's exactly. Yeah. The teacher I'm referring to is Pablo Sender. He's very popular. Lots of lectures on YouTube you can find. But people turn to him when they have messed up, opened up channels that they can't control, and so good. I'm glad I asked that question.
Yeah.
I feel the same way. I think that we have to accept where we are and try our best and not worry about where we are and just try to be of service.
We still do, in the morning you do pranayama, mantra, and then prayer, which is also a technique that will advance you as well as helping others. But you do that so you can be of greater service. You have better concentration, you have more energy, and, it helps to purify the nadis. So you still do, but you don't, we have a very, very balanced breathing exercises. You don't.
So is that like the alternate nostril breathing? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Good. So that's so is that the pranayama, or you have different methods?
Yes, well, that's the pranayama. Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay.
So we have a very balanced, because Dr. King, he was an advanced yogi. So because he was a Martian, he incarnated in Earth. Jesus was he was from Venus, the bright and morning star, says that in the Bible. So he was the master for the Piscean age, and Dr. King was the master for the Aquarian age. So embodies all the qualities of Aquarius. And he, like Jesus, had to do, he went into the desert, did tumo breathing, did very, very powerful, like Wim Hof breathing. Jesus raised the Kundalini in his life so that he could ascend. And Dr. King, he did in the 1950s, he did 8 hours a day of yoga for 10 years. Did very advanced yoga. He was levitating, made himself invisible, and he raised the Kundalini all the way. He loved it because it's a dangerous practice, and he likes dangerous things. But he said, you must not do this because, you know, he had a mission on this earth. He had to do it within a set time. If he had no time to go around and let it rise naturally, he had to force it. So it can be done, but you have to be a master, and he had somebody to supervise him as well. So it's not something we're not advised to. I don't touch it. You know, it's very
Yeah.
I don't have
I mean, that's no, that's good to know, because that's exactly how we look at that. And you know, as you said, it takes so many hours of practice. And if you feel, you know, if you put on this earth to fulfill a certain service, then you have guidance. You definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
Wonderful.
that. Any other questions?
No, well, I could keep chatting to you all day, but I'd love you to come on again. And maybe if you get the copy of the book, you could, you know, so let me know what you think of it. And because a scholar such as yourself, you know, would really get a lot more from it than even I do.
Okay. Yeah. The only other thing I want to mention, I studied Jean Gebser, who was a philosopher. And so it's non-sectarian, but he wrote a book, The Ever-Present Origin. And he just approached the same issue from a different viewpoint that we have. We had the archaic level of consciousness, and then the magical level of consciousness, then mystical, and then the rational, in which we are now. And we have to move into this integral level of consciousness. And that's so, I mean, you know, the more you study, the more you see that there are so many overlaps. So.
Wonderful. So how can people find out more about you? Get your books? What's your website?
Oh, I have a website. It's called Spirituality Consciousness is Me. I'm still working on. I have to ramp it, but it's only a summary of all the books that I have read, and I provide the links to my articles and lectures. But all I'm trying to show, and you know, it's outdated, so I'm working on that. All I'm trying to show is that. So it doesn't matter if it's religion or science or philosophy or even psychology. Look at Jung, that there's this overlap. They are all saying the same thing.
Yeah.
We need to wake up. We need to wake up and not focus only on the materialistic aspects of existence, because it's not bringing us anywhere. Let's look where we are worldwide. That cannot be the way. That already tells us that that's not the way. Yeah.
Amen to that. Yeah. Anything but that.
Okay. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Susanne.
And of course, through the Theosophical Society,
of course,
you can find out more about me. Yes.
Right. And if people want to learn more about the AETHERIUS Society, they can go to aetherius.org.
Yes, I have that link, and I'll look at that too. But I have researched it before I agreed to interview.
All right.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.